The clock on my phone read 12:47 a.m. when my mother dragged my bags down the front steps and threw them onto the wet pavement. I stood in my pajamas, barefoot, watching it happen like it was happening to someone else. Like my brain refused to accept what my eyes were seeing. The porch light was on. It lit everything, the bags, the rain, her face. Mrs. Adiz from next door had come to her window. A man walking his dog had stopped on the sidewalk. Someone across the street held up a phone. Recording. My mother did not care. She stood in the doorway in her silk robe, arms crossed, chin lifted. She looked powerful. She looked sure. Then she said the words I will never forget. "You are not my daughter anymore. You are not family. You are nothing." She said it clearly, like a verdict, like she had prepared it, like she had waited a long time to say it. Then the door closed. The lock clicked, and I was standing on the street in the middle of the night with 2 bags, no shoes, and nowhere in the world to go. The silence after that click was the loneliest sound I have ever heard. I stood on that pavement long enough for the dog walker to keep moving, long enough for Mrs. Adiz's window to go dark. I pulled on my slippers from the side pocket of my bag and sat on the curb. My phone was at 11%. I scrolled through my contacts slowly. Name after name after name. Then I realized something that made my stomach drop. Every person I could call was connected to my mother. My Aunt Bimp, her sister. My friend Nadia, who came to family dinners. My colleague Funmi, who had met my mother at the office party. Even the pastor's wife I sometimes called for prayer. Every name. Every number. She had spent years doing this quietly, making sure the people around me were also the people around her. I had never seen it so clearly before. I had been living inside a circle, and she was the one who drew it. I put the phone face down on my knee and stared at the empty street. My battery was dying. My feet were cold. I had nowhere safe to sleep. Then a woman came out of a house 3 doors down. She had seen what happened. She asked quietly if I needed help. Her name was Mrs. Okafor. She gave me water and a blanket and did not ask many questions that night. In the morning I made the only call I could. My cousin Eduora. She lived 20 minutes away and had always been kind to me. The phone rang 4 times before she picked up. Her voice when she heard it was me shifted. Not warm. Not cold. Careful. "Zara," she said slowly. "I heard what happened." My chest tightened. "You heard?" "Yes. Your mother called us last night," she said. "She said you became aggressive. That you threatened her. That she had no choice." I felt the world tilt. My mother had called everyone. Before I even found somewhere to sleep, she had already told the story. Her version. The version where I was the problem. Dora was sorry, she said. But she could not have me come. Her husband was uncomfortable. Maybe in a few days. I thanked her quietly and hung up. I sat on Mrs. Okafor's couch and stared at the wall. This was not a mother losing control in the heat of the moment. She had made the calls the same night. She was ready. She had been ready for a very long time. This was not emotion. This was strategy. I am 29 years old. For most of those years, I believed the story my mother told about herself. That she was sacrificing. That her control was love in a different shape. But sitting in that stranger's living room, the memories started to play differently. I remembered how she always held the finances. Even when I started working, my salary went into a joint account she had set up. "For savings," she said. "So you don't waste it." I remembered how she chose my university, my course, my first job. Every time I pushed back, she would cry or go silent for days until I agreed. I remembered how she made comments about every friend I brought home until one by one I stopped bringing them. Each memory on its own looked like a mother being a mother. But together, laid out in the morning light, they told a different story. She had not raised me. She had built a cage and called it a home. She had created a version of me that could not survive without her approval. And now that I had shown one moment of resistance, she had thrown me out. Not because she was hurt. Because she wanted to remind me who held the power. This eviction was not grief. By the second day, I had moved into a small hostel near the bus station. The woman at the front desk did not ask questions. Paid for a week. I had some savings my mother did not know about. Money I had set aside quietly for 2 years in a private account. Small amounts. I was not sure why I had done it. Instinct, maybe. Or some part of me always knew this day would come. I sat on the narrow bed and made a decision. I was not going to beg. I was not going to post anything on social media. I was not going to fight. Silence was my first weapon, and I would use it carefully. I reached under the bed and pulled out a brown folder I had grabbed from my room in the rush. It was full of documents I had collected over the years without fully understanding why. Old papers. Family papers. Things I had watched my mother sign and file away. Something had nudged me to keep copies months ago. I had never opened them properly. I spread them on the bed in front of me. I did not know yet what they meant. I spread the papers out slowly. There were utility bills, insurance documents, bank letters, and something I had never examined carefully. The property documents for the house. My mother had bought the house 16 years ago. But the papers were not only in her name. I read the page 3 times before I believed it. My name was there. Araolu. Listed as co-owner. I was 12 years old when those papers were signed. I had no memory of it. My mother had never mentioned it. Not once. Checked the date. Checked the address. I checked the signature. My name, written in my mother's handwriting beside a notary stamp. She had signed on my behalf as a child. Maybe for tax reasons. Maybe for a benefit she was claiming. But my name was on that house. The house she had thrown me out of. I checked a second document. A bank letter addressed to both of us. I was listed as a co-borrower on a refinancing. My credit, my ID number, my signature. All used without my full knowledge. I sat very still for a long time. The folder was not just old paperwork. It was a map. And it was pointing somewhere I had not expected. The next morning, I visited a lawyer named Mr. Babatunde. He had a small office above a pharmacy, recommended by Mrs. Okafor's daughter. I laid the documents on his desk one by one and told him everything. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he looked at the papers for a long moment. "Miss Zara," he said, "do you understand what these documents mean?" I told him I had some idea but needed confirmation. He explained it carefully. My name on the deed meant legal co-ownership of the property. My signature as co-borrower meant I was tied to the financial obligations of the house. If any institution needed to verify the property or process changes, I was part of that process. I could not be removed by a thrown suitcase or a midnight eviction. He looked at me steadily. "Your mother may not realize the full weight of what she built around you," he said. "She may have done it for her own purposes. But the result is that your presence, legally, is holding several things in place." He paused. "And your absence," he added quietly, "may cause instability she is not prepared for." I sat with those words. For the first time since that porch light, I did not feel thrown away. Back in the hostel that evening, I thought about my mother. I pictured her moving through the house with that look she gets when she feels she has one. Chin up, shoulders back. A small smile she does not know she is making. She would have called my aunt again. Told the church women. Framed it as a painful but necessary decision. The devoted mother who made a hard choice. People would have nodded. They always did. She had spent years building that version of herself in everyone's minds. And now the difficult daughter was gone and she was finally free. She would feel powerful, untouchable. She would start making new financial moves. Contact the bank about something she had been planning to do. She would feel like a door had been opened wide and she would walk through it with full confidence. She would have no idea what was waiting on the other side. I was not plotting anything. I was not planning a trap. I was simply no longer available. And for the first time in my life, simply being unavailable was enough to matter. The thing she had discarded was also the thing that had been holding her world in place. On the 4th day, my phone rang from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A man from a financial institution asked me to call back regarding an account linked to the property address. Routine, he said. I did not call. The next morning he called again. This time he mentioned that my verification was needed as a listed co-party before certain processes could move forward. I wrote down the number. Then the phone rang a third time. A different number, same institution. A woman, more direct. She said there was a review underway on the mortgage refinancing. Both parties needed to respond before anything could continue. She mentioned the house address clearly. I listened to every word and did not call back. I was beginning to understand something important. The calls were not demanding anything dramatic. They were simply noticing. The financial system had a structure. My name was woven into that structure. And when a name is woven into something and suddenly goes quiet, the structure begins to notice the silence. The house my mother threw me out of was asking where I had gone. She had called me nothing. She had said I did not belong. But the bank, in its quiet and formal way, was saying something different. I made a rule for myself that week. No reactions. No public statements. No emotional responses. Every time I felt the urge to explain my side, I stopped. Every time I wanted to post something, I closed the app. When Nadia texted asking if I was okay, I replied with 2 words, "I'm fine," and put the phone down. Silence was not weakness. Silence was space. Space to observe. Space to understand before making a single move. I started keeping a notebook. Every call I received, I logged the date, the time, the institution, the message. Every document I photographed and organized. I made a list of every financial tie between my name and the house. Then I went back to Mr. Babatunde with the list. He reviewed it carefully and asked questions about the refinancing. He told me to schedule a full consultation for the following week. "Do not respond to any of those calls yet," he said firmly. "Let me understand the full picture first." I walked out of his office feeling something I had not felt in days. Not happiness. Not relief. Something quieter and stronger. Clarity. The kind that does not shake when someone raises their voice. I had spent my whole life reacting to my mother's moves. Mr. Babatunde called me 3 days later. He had done his research. He spoke at length and I listened carefully to every word. My name on the deed was not symbolic. Under the terms of the refinancing arranged 3 years ago, I was listed as co-borrower. Not just a guarantor, a co-borrower. The loan was partly tied to my credit profile, my income verification, my identity. The bank had processed the refinancing based on 2 parties. If one party became unreachable, if their contact details changed, if they did not respond to required reviews, the bank had the right to trigger a formal review process. That review could lead to a rate adjustment, a notice of irregularity, or a call for early settlement. Your mother may have believed she was using your name as a tool, Mr. Babatunde said carefully. But she tied the house's financial health to your cooperation. Right now you are not cooperating. Not because you are refusing. Simply because you are absent. He paused. The house needs you more than she ever admitted. I heard him clearly. My mother had spent 16 years making me feel I needed her to survive. She had never told me, never even hinted, that the truth quietly running underneath everything was the other way around entirely. Things moved quietly after that. Just the slow, steady turning of a system reacting to a change it had not been prepared for. Mr. Babatunde sent a formal letter to the bank on my behalf, notifying them I was no longer residing at the listed address and requesting clarification on my obligations as co-borrower. This was not aggressive. It was procedural. But it opened a process. The bank responded by initiating a standard review, which meant paperwork, verification requests, and letters going out to both listed parties. My mother would start receiving them soon. She would open them and frown. She would read words like review period, and co-borrower verification, and pending documentation. She would assume it was routine at first. She had always handled paperwork herself. But this time the paperwork had my name on it. She could not sign for me. She could not answer for me. She could not make me cooperate by raising her voice or withholding her approval. For the first time, she needed something from me that she could not take by force. I had not done anything dramatic. I had simply written a letter. And that letter, written calmly in a small office above a pharmacy, was now doing something she had never expected. On the 9th day, my mother called for the first time. I was eating at the small desk in my hostel room when the phone lit up with her name. I looked at it for 3 full rings. Then I let it go to voicemail. She did not leave a message. 10 minutes later she called again. 4 calls in 1 hour. No messages. On the 5th call she finally left one. I played it that evening with earphones in, sitting by the window. Her voice was not what I expected. Not angry. Not commanding. It was tight. Clip. Like someone trying hard to sound in control but not quite managing it. Zara. It's your mother. I need you to call me back as soon as possible. There are things to sort out regarding the house. Some paperwork has arrived. It's urgent. That was all. No hello. No apology. No asking if I was safe or sleeping. Just the house. Just the paperwork. I noticed what was absent from the message more than what was in it. She was not calling because she missed me. She was calling because something was going wrong and she needed me to fix it. The power in that realization settled over me like warmth. By the end of the first week, things were moving faster than my mother expected. The bank review was not a small matter. When a co-borrower becomes unreachable during an annual review cycle, the institution flags the file. A flagged file means slower processing. Slower processing means any changes my mother wanted to make, adjusting payment terms, refinancing, anything requiring updated documentation, were now on hold. Mr. Babatunde also told me the house insurance was under a joint policy with both our names. The annual renewal was coming up within the month. If I did not sign the renewal documents, the policy would lapse. A lapsed policy on a mortgaged property is serious. The bank requires active insurance as a condition of the loan. Without it, they can declare the borrower in breach of the loan terms. None of this was something I caused deliberately. I had simply been thrown out and had not gone back. But my absence was pulling at threads my mother had woven into the walls of her life without telling me. Those threads were now tightening one by one, pulling everything slowly toward the edge. She had not removed a burden that midnight. Something shifted in me during the second week. I stopped waiting to see what would happen. I started watching. There is a difference. Waiting is passive, you hold your breath, you react. Watching is active. You study the pattern. You understand who is moving and why. I watched my mother's calls increase from 1 a day to 3. I watched the voicemails grow more strained with each passing day. I watched a text arrive from my Aunt Bimp, the same aunt who had passed on the poison story, now asking me gently to just pick up the phone for the family's sake. I noticed that no one asked how I was. No one asked where I was sleeping or if I needed anything. Every message was about what I should do. For the family. For the house. For my mother. I had spent 29 years in that pattern. Carrying weight that was placed on me before I was old enough to understand I was carrying it. And now, simply by standing still, by not returning calls and not signing documents, I was more powerful than I had ever been when I tried to please everyone. I was no longer reacting. I was setting the pace. On the 11th day, she left a voicemail that was different from all the others. Mr. Babatunde had asked to hear it, so I played it in his office. My mother's voice was unsteady, not tight and controlled like before. This one had rawness beneath the words that she could not quite cover. Zara, please. I don't know what is happening with the bank. They keep sending letters and I don't understand them. They say something about the co-borrower and I cannot move forward with anything until you respond. Please, just call them. You don't even have to talk to me. Just call the bank. Please. He paused. Then softer. I don't know what to do. I sat with that for a moment. Mr. Babatunde watched my face. That voicemail was the closest thing to a breakdown I had ever heard from my mother. But I noticed still no apology. No mention of the wet pavement. No, I am sorry I called you nothing. There was only panic about the house. Only fear about the money. She was not calling because she had realized she was wrong. She was calling because she needed something from me. There is a deep difference between those two things. The relatives came next, exactly as I expected. My Aunt Bimp called twice. Eduora texted 3 times asking me to be the bigger person. A woman from our church sent a long voice note about forgiveness and family. I listened to everyone. Then I blocked them. Not in anger. Not dramatically. No reply, no explanation. I simply removed them from the list of people whose voices could reach me, one by one, with the same calm I would use to close a window when the weather turns. I understood what was happening. The system was using social pressure to bring me back in line. My mother could not reach me directly, so she had activated the network she had spent years building. The same circle she had drawn. They were all carrying her panic in their own voices, asking me to return and stabilize what my absence was now threatening. I felt no hatred toward any of them, but I felt no obligation either. I had spent my life feeling obligated to people who never once asked if I was okay before making demands of me. I was learning what it felt like when that obligation finally had no grip. Felt strange. Felt unfamiliar. On the 12th night, the guilt arrived. Quiet and insistent, the way it always had all my life. I lay on the narrow hostel bed in the dark and let the memories come. Not the painful ones. The other ones. My mother braiding my hair on Sunday mornings. The way she made pepper soup when I was sick and stayed up to check my temperature. The pride on her face at my graduation. The way she called me her sharp girl when I got my first job. Those things were real. They had happened. And they sat right next to everything else, the control, the manipulation, the midnight eviction, all in the same story inside the same woman. That is what no one tells you about complicated love. It does not disappear just because it was also harmful. You can grieve something and still know you cannot return to it. The pull to call her and say, "Fine, let's fix it," was strong that night. But I thought about what fixing it would mean. Going back. Signing the documents. Returning to the circle. Being controllable again. I placed my phone on the floor, face down. Then I lay back and closed my eyes. The boundary was hard to hold. On the 13th day, Mr. Babatunde called early. His tone was focused and serious. The bank had officially issued a co-borrower review notice. Because I had not responded to verification requests and my contact information on file was outdated, they had opened a formal file inquiry. A flagged mortgage account meant my mother could not change the loan, access any equity or refinance. He also told me the insurance renewal was in a holding pattern. The insurance company had sent a formal notice to the bank informing them the policy renewal was delayed due to an unsigned co-party document. The bank had responded by issuing a property obligation notice to both parties on the mortgage. My mother had received hers that morning. It was not a final threat yet. But it was the kind of official letter that makes people understand very quickly that something is becoming serious. I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat by the window for a long time. The morning light was quiet and ordinary outside. But inside the financial system, something was unraveling. I had not caused it by fighting. I had not planned it as revenge. I had caused it simply by being absent. She came to the hostel on the 14th day. I do not know how she found me. I was coming back from a walk when I saw her standing outside. She was not in her usual pressed clothes. She wore a simple dress, no jewelry, and her eyes were swollen. She had been crying, real crying, not the kind she used for effect. When she saw me, something in her face broke open. She did not speak at first. She stood there looking at me the way someone looks when they finally understand the size of something they have broken. I stopped a few feet away. Kept my hands in my pockets. Waited. When she spoke, her voice was small and cracked. "Zara. I don't know what to do. The bank sent a letter. The insurance company. Everything is." She shook her head. Then she said words I had waited my whole life to hear, arriving in a way I had never imagined. "I'm sorry." I stood very still. I let the words reach me without rushing toward them. She was crying now, shoulders shaking. She reached out a hand toward me. For the first time in my entire life, I was the one with the power to decide what happened next between us. I did not take her hand. I looked at it for a moment. Then at her face. "Let's sit," I said calmly. We sat on a bench near the entrance. I did not hold her. I did not cry. I let her finish. When she was done, I spoke. Not loudly. I spoke the way you speak when you have had 13 days and 12 nights to find the right words. "Mum, you added my name to your house when I was a child without telling me. You used my credit for refinancing without asking me. You controlled every account I had, every choice I made. And when I showed you I would not keep shrinking, you threw me out at midnight and told everyone I was the problem." She started to speak. I held up one hand. "I am not saying this so we can argue. I am saying it so that you understand. I understand. I see the pattern. All of it." I looked at her steadily. "You did not throw away a difficult daughter that night. You threw away the person holding the floor of your house in place. The floor is going now. Not because I planned it. Just because I stopped holding it up." She cried for a long time after that. I sat beside her and did not tell her it was okay. 'Cause it was not okay. But I also did not leave. There is a difference between forgiveness and permission. Between compassion and weakness. I had spent so long confusing those pairs. I let her cry without rushing her. And somewhere in that silence, something shifted in me too. Not healing yet. Healing is a long road. But the very first step of it, which is telling the truth without begging someone to believe you, happened on that bench. I told her what she had done. She heard it. She could not deny it because the documents and the bank letters and the insurance notices were all saying the same thing as my words. The evidence had arrived through every door at once. Tears came to my eyes too. Not from sadness exactly. More like the release that comes when you have been holding your breath for years and finally let it go completely. I did not say, "It's okay, I forgive you, let's go home." But I breathed. For the first time in a long time I breathed all the way down. That evening I went back to my room and laid out all the documents once more. This is the truth my mother had never told me. When she added my name to the property deed 16 years ago, she did not do it as a gift or a mistake. She did it because the bank required a second party with a clean credit history for the original loan to be approved. I was a child, my credit record was blank. Exactly what she needed. As I grew older, she kept my name on the accounts and the insurance and the refinancing because my profile continued to benefit her arrangements. She was using me financially without my knowledge, without my agreement. The house was not purely hers. It was ours. And the entire financial structure surrounding it, the mortgage, the insurance, the bank loan, had been built with me as one of its load-bearing pillars. When she threw me out, she did not remove a burden from her life. She knocked out a structural support. Everything began to lean. She thought she was freeing herself from me. She never knew she had been standing on my shoulders the whole time. That was the biggest truth of all. Mr. Babatunde told me plainly that I had options. Could re-engage. Sign the documents, respond to the bank, renew the insurance. That would stop the collapse. The house would stabilize. My mother's mortgage would continue. Everything would return to the way it was. He waited while I considered it. Thought for a long time. Then I told him my decision. I would not return to the house. I would not re-engage with the mortgage as it stood. What I was willing to do, only what I was willing to do, was initiate a formal co-ownership review. This would document my legal stake in the property, protect my credit record, and allow me to formally separate my name from the financial obligations in a clean, recorded way. It would not destroy my mother, but it would make the existing arrangement impossible to continue without honest renegotiation. She would need to refinance in her name alone, or buy out my legal share. She could do those things, but she would have to do them honestly, without my name as a silent tool she had never told me about. I stood up from the chair in that small office above a pharmacy and felt my own weight differently than I ever had before. 2 weeks after she threw me out at midnight, my mother called again. I was in a coffee shop near the hostel reading a book. My phone buzzed on the table. Name. I looked at it. I thought about the girl whose hair she used to braid on Sunday mornings. I thought about the woman on the bench with swollen eyes. I thought about 16 years of documents with my name on them that I never signed freely. I thought about pavement in the rain. Door being locked. You are nothing. I thought about the calls I had not answered, the relatives I had blocked, the night I almost broke but did not. I thought about that brown folder under a hostel bed, and the first moment I understood I was never as powerless as she needed me to believe. I let the phone ring. Once. 3 times. Stop. A voicemail notification appeared. I did not play it. I set the phone face down on the table and picked up my book. Outside the window the city moved in its ordinary way. People walked. Cars passed. The light changed from red to green. Inside me, something that had been locked for a very long time had opened wide.